Welcome to the Newduereview podcast. I'm using my radio voice, or I guess you could say call center voice. That would be a thing too. I worked in a call center for a little while. Well, we're already off track. Oh my god. Okay, so here's what's going on. If you're listening to this podcast for the very first time, you're gonna go on for quite a ride because this is literally the very first podcast I've ever done, and literally my very first attempt to do a podcast. And I guess to continue with that, I'm also recording it on video. I've got a video camera in front of me that I'm recording myself doing the podcast, and then I'm going to upload this to YouTube as well, so that there'll be a video copy of the podcast for my channel called Newduereview, and it's also the same name of the blog, in newduereview.com. That's Newduereview. So that's where it is. So this could be a very strange podcast for you to listen to, and I think it's going to be fun. You're also going to realize too that I'm not the best at speaking professionally, even with a camera. Like I'm now looking at this speakerphone that I'm holding in front of my face like that, but there's also a camera in front of me too. So I'm not sure if I should look at the camera's lens, the preview of it, or if I should focus on the microphone that I'm holding, because I'm holding a microphone. And that's going to be, I don't know how that's going to work, because you hear that's my hand, because I'm holding a thing that screws into the bottom of the recording device, and you may hear that. But that's kind of cool. I like those things. That would interest me if I was to hear this for the first time, so I'm okay with letting all of this happen in the audio. And in this whole performance, that's really what this is all about. So we're already off track immediately, because I'm not sure really what we're going to talk about. But you know what? That's the point. This is ground zero. This is the very first time I'm doing this. And we're going to capture all of it. I've actually done some videos already for YouTube, so I'm a little bit more comfortable in front of the camera. It's just that now I'm holding this microphone. If you can, that'll be a cool effect once you hear it when it's processed and available on whatever a streaming thing is available. So yeah, check that out. Right, that's kind of cool. Okay, so where are we going with this? Usually in my videos for YouTube, I just talk for long periods of time. I just sit here on this couch. I'm sitting on a brown couch right now that's in the corner where my computer is, and I put a video camera in front of me, and I just talk about certain topics that I want to talk about, and that's really it. I kind of keep going. I leave in all the weird blemishes that I am as a person to include as a performance. Because I would appreciate that if I was watching this as a viewer. I don't know. That's how I feel about performance and in art and all that stuff. Because really, I see all this as is just art. A podcast has many. I'm not sure what to say. Possible agendas, I guess you could say, because it's very popular for a brand or a business identity, or entity, I should say, to have a podcast to do lead generation, create interest, make a market for your product, and all that. And so I'm just gonna move. Maybe that's better. Yeah. Okay. I moved the mic. But if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see me. This is funny. So yeah. Okay, so yeah, off track again. So it's very popular to have a podcast because it creates interest. It's a lead. It's basically a lead magnet for whatever you're trying to sell, if you're selling something. But if you're also just doing this out of pure passion for the love of Yeah, basically discourse and spoken word, argument, people talking, that kind of thing. It's an art form. This is all, it's all performance, and it's all governed by laws of art and entertainment and that sort of thing. So yeah, that's kind of why I'm going to do it. I'm going to leave everything in. It's going to be kind of gnarly. The audio is going to sound, I'm not sure how it's going to sound, to be perfectly honest, but you know what? I think it's going to be okay. I trust this microphone. It's pretty good. So what I do in the videos for this is I talk about the equipment I use, because that connects into the affiliate marketing that I'm engaged with. And it keeps me, I want to be transparent and very open with people, because really the point of doing this is to monetize yourself. You know, as a creator of various things, you want to get paid, and you know, at least the goal for me to be doing this is to have this as a career and generate an income for this full time, so that you know, you don't have to work for somebody or a corporation. You want to be in complete control of your destiny. Working at a job, there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, I've held many jobs, but you're at the whim of somebody else, and you know, with the climate of today's change in technology, things change very rapidly, and it wouldn't be outside of reality to have your job become obsolete in some way, or have change affect you in such a way that you know, you may lose your job. So becoming entrepreneurial and having your own business, I see that as a very valuable thing, and so that is one of the core reasons I'm doing this, is to try and monetize it, and also show the world how that's possible in a documentary sort of way. That's one of the reasons why this is even existing as it is in this exact moment that you're listening to it, probably a few days later, even a few weeks later, because I still have to figure out how to upload this. Okay, so where are we at? We talked about kind of the why behind that, behind this. I've revealed many of the disadvantages and problems that we're going to have, which is mainly just me, you know, basically starting for the first time. So this is going to be a fairly gnarly type of experience, but like I said, I personally appreciate that. I like gnarly stuff, so that's really where it is. Okay, so maybe let's do an introduction. I've already introduced myself on YouTube a little bit, but since this is being recorded for YouTube as well as for a podcast, we'll do another, like basically a reintroduction. But this is, if you know, because this is a podcast as well, you get to learn about me for the very first time as well too. So I guess here we go. So my name is Brent, Brent. I say that because you know what, I guess I have a little bit of accent. I've learned that over time, becoming older, meeting people from I guess from all sorts of places, really. You know, the older you get, the more people you meet, and so you know, I spell out my name sometimes just because it sort of sounds like Brett or something else, but it's Brent with an N, but I say it with like I kind of slur the N, so I don't know. Maybe that's funny. So I'm Brent. I run the blog. It's basically a personal blog. I write about my experiences with music. I talk about some of the compositions I did in university, and just, you know, a few other things related to music. I wrote a few reviews for other people to publish on my website. So I reviewed a band, and then I reviewed a radio show, and I just basically wrote an article talking about the product, basically, which was the either the band or the show, and just kind of surrounded it with a little bit of context. And you know, there's the article, and then I promoted it in whatever way I could, and that was kind of it. So I've done a little bit of that, and I wrote about some music that was close to me in a lot of ways, and that kind of fills out the whole blog. And what's on Newduereview. I also have a few other blogs that I work on as well, so I'm split between 2 different brands. I'll maybe reveal that in future, in an opportune time in the future, because because you know, I would have to deal with some like a whole different brand of topic. But it's a pretty cool topic. You'll maybe learn about that in the future. But we're gonna just stick with Newduereview right now, because that's the one blog, and that's the brand of this. That's this whole identity is Newduereview. So we'll focus on that, and then when the time comes, I'll start to reveal other things that I'm doing, other basically, I guess, brands, or I like to call them identities or entities on the internet. It feels maybe more appropriate to have that, because it's a real thing. It's a real person. It's just me through a different, like in multiple coats or multiple clothing or something. I'm not sure what to call that, but well, we'll eventually get to that. Okay, so we talked about what the Newduereview blog is. Let's, maybe we can talk about interest and my personal experience. So when it comes to my skills, well, I guess I'll tell you a story of I guess who I am and where I come from. I'm going to move the mic, maybe just because my arm is getting tired. I'll tell you a story, but you know what? But before I do that, I had a thought of the whole affiliate marketing thing, and because that is all connected into the story. But in these videos, I like to talk about the gear I use as this affiliate marketing transparency, because I realize I covered that already at the beginning. We're gonna jump around anyways, so if you're this far in, which is 12 minutes, if you're going like, wow, well, what is going on with this dude? He is just like all over. He's just like a cup of spilled milk or something. Like, he's all over the place. Get used to it. It's gonna like I'm gonna go all over the place. So deal with it. All right. So let's talk about the gear. So I trust in my Zoom H1 handy recorder. That's what is being recorded with the audio. The camera is it's a Canon. I don't know the model of it, and then I've got like a Dynex sort of cheap whatever brand stand, and that's pretty much it. I made a joke in one of my first videos about this Rubbermaid. The video can see it, you can't audio, sorry. The Rubbermaid water bottle, which is extremely helpful because when you talk for long periods, your throat gets very dry, and it's literally saved me on almost every video that I've made so far. I haven't made that many videos, but each video is a very long video. It's about an hour and 20 minutes, so I talk for long periods, and it really helps. So all those things I can create affiliate links for through the Amazon Associates program. So that's what this disclaimer is. It's to reveal that that's where the affiliate marketing comes into play. That's how I can make commissions through these links. If you click them and buy these products, I can get paid for that. So that's how a lot of blogs that's how they make money. Is through these affiliate commissions. And there's other affiliate programs too. Amazon Associates is just the big one that allows you to promote products in whatever way you can, usually through content creation like this or something else or an article. And if you can convince somebody that the product is worth buying through your link, you get paid. So it's a pretty cool way to be sort of, I guess you could say, almost like a makeshift salesperson. As well as content creator, and promote products that you're passionate about or you've used personally. I mean, it could be anything, gardening stuff. But in this case, I've got it set up so that I can promote all the equipment I'm using, even the headphones. They're like a Sony headphone. I'm not sure what the brand is. I could probably find it on, Amazon. And so the video will have all the links, but the audio, this podcast that you're listening to, I don't know how that's going to work. probably won't have any links available, but it doesn't matter. I mean, it's all free content anyway. You know, this is all easily accessible anywhere. I mainly have these affiliate links. They're more informational. I see them. It's more to reveal, here's the equipment I used in the creation of this product, which is a video or an audio. Try it out yourself. You know, a lot of the equipment is not super expensive. The H1 Zoom, I think it's a cost-effective way to record. I'm using it right now as a handheld device. If you can probably tell. Yeah, it's pretty cool, right? So I'm gonna get a mic stand pretty soon. I'll probably get that off Amazon. So there you have it. But that's a way that you monetize your content, because you know it takes a lot of work to make all this stuff, and you know, getting compensation for it is really, that's really what it's all about. That's why people are doing this, because they're realizing that they can be compensated for things that they like doing. That's why people make these YouTube videos, because they're going to get the ad revenue off these videos. For me, not so much, because nobody knows about what this is. I'm completely unknown right now, so I'm not going to see ad revenue for, I don't even know, probably never until this becomes popular, I guess. I have no idea. I'm not worried about that. I'm just worried about creating something that's authentic and that's me. But you know, that's so that kind of connects back to the affiliate marketing thing. It's, you know, I'm trying to be transparent. So what I'm using as affiliate products are the equipment that appear in this video, or in the podcast world, is what you're physically hearing. So, you know, you could joke, make a musician joke that, oh, I can hear the camera running in the background, you know, something funny like that. But it's all here. It's all being captured in a soundscape, right? So that's what I promote. And you know, there's some other music stuff on the website too. There's the albums that you can get through Amazon, which are part of the articles that I've talked about. So there's that, but not much else. When you do affiliate marketing, you want to have brand alignment, so that, you know, whatever topic you're dealing with, which is the niche, you want to have the products and services that you promote make sense for that. So there's a piano product, teaching piano on ClickBank, called Piano for All. That's something that you could use if your blog was music centric or revolved around music in some way. Learning piano is important for just basic musicianship. If you're a musician right now and you're seeing this or hearing this, pointing at the mic, you need to know how to play the piano, because well, let's just put it this way: when you go to university for music, which I have, you need to learn the piano. They make you learn the piano by the second year. It's part of the curriculum. That's the universities I went to. I don't know how it works for other universities, but it's very important. It's just a part of a toolbox for musicians. So I think that makes sense in the context of my music blog, and that's how I would pitch it. Is you're okay? So you play guitar, great. Play the piano. Learn how to play the piano now. Do that, because it's going to help you so much in understanding how scales are physically, I guess no, not physically, or just sonically, but theoretically put together. Because the piano's flat, you can see the scale a lot easier than it is on a guitar, where you're dealing with a shape, that kind of thing. I was moving my fingers. You probably can't see that. Maybe you can hear it on the audio. Okay. All right, so I guess that kind of covers the affiliate marketing disclosure. Sorry, I blew into the mic. I don't know how it's going to work with monetization through this podcast. I'm not even sure how. I'm set up on Anchor. I'm not really even sure what that is, because basically I Googled how to set up a podcast, and I ended up with that, and I made a profile on Anchor, which I guess uploads to Spotify, because I want to get on Spotify. That's the big one, right? You want to get your stuff there so people can find it on the most popular platform, because it's like Spotify, YouTube, and you know, that's pretty much it. Okay, so affiliate marketing, I guess we talked about that. So then we should talk about me, the story behind me, and you know, the things I like, because that's important. That'll at least set you up as a listener to know what we're gonna get into in the future. But I'm trying to think if there's anything else I should tell you before we do that, because you know, I want to tell a decent story of who I am or what my skills are. But I'm gonna have some water first before we do that. Oh yeah, that's gonna hit the spot. Okay, cool. I don't think there is. Well, I guess before that, you can hit me up on all the major platforms. Twitter. Let me just think. There's so many now. So Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, my website, Facebook. I think that's it. I think those are the big ones. But we'll talk about social media, because I got a bone to pick with social media. Not in a bad way, but it's just something that we'll talk about. Okay, so I think that's it. Yeah, you know, you can find me very easily if you want to. It's just a matter of want. Okay, so Brent. Who am I? What did I do? What are my skills? All right, so I guess really what I can boil it all down to is that I was a musician prior to this moment here. I was a bass player. I started when I was 14. I haven't played too much bass since I got into my 30s, so I guess, let's do the math, 16 years or so. I was, I guess, a professional bass player, you could say. Maybe not as, like, I didn't get into the big leagues or anything. I mainly was playing in just like garage rock metal bands when I first started, and then once I graduated high school, I just worked full-time at jobs, you know, where I lived, mostly in call centers. So that's where that call center joke came into play, my sultry call center voice. So I did call center work as my vocation to fuel and pay for my music career. So I was in a band for quite a while. I'm trying to think now. It was like 2007 to 2013 we were a band. I don't know if I should talk about them or the name of the band, just because, you know, for privacy reasons, you know, I want to be accountable to just myself. I don't want to affect anybody else, I guess you could say. Like, I'm not meaning, I don't mean harm by that, but, you know, I'm looking out for the people who are in the band, you know, because they have their own lives and stuff, right? So that's it's more of a privacy thing. So I won't talk about the band or name them. You know, if you really want to find out, I guess you could email me. You know, because you can see the videos of us play online and stuff. So I mean, we're still there. But you know, I guess just to protect them, I won't mention it, at least right now. Not until maybe there's a demand for it or something. But you know, I wanna keep their privacy intact and safe, because I care about those guys a lot. Like, I really do. That was some of the best times I've ever had in my life as a musician, you know, making an album. So yeah, well, I won't belabor that anyways. So I was in a band full time. We recorded a full-length album, won a few different what do we call it, a battle of bands, like, sort of contest. So we did that a few times. That got us out there. So we were pretty popular in our hometown, at least. We didn't really get too much of a chance to move out of our home location. So that was kind of like my life for a while, until around my mid-20s, where I got into university. I joined a university jazz program. So I was learning jazz bass. I stuck with the electric bass. The acoustic bass was definitely a thing that you, as a bass player, is important, especially in the jazz tradition, as well as classical too. So I was in that scene for a few years, until 2014 or so, because the band ended in 2013. So around 2014, I got into a fine arts program. I was able to transfer my credits from the jazz program to do just music composition, pure music composition. So that means I'm just composing. I'm not physically playing. I'm writing it on paper, giving it to a musician to play. So, you know, like Mozart or Beethoven, right? That's, you know, those that sort of situation where I'm making music for other people to play. I don't want to name drop Mozart too much. I mean, it's just an example, right? Because he's a composer, and that's what people know that is. You know, or anybody else. I'm trying to think of the common name, but that doesn't matter. So I got into music composition through the jazz program. There was an intro composition class that the chair of the program, who ran the program, I think he still does, I'm not sure. Anyways, that doesn't matter either. But he was a composer, so he had some contemporary classical experience with that, so he taught like an intro class. And I took that for both semesters, and I absolutely loved it. It felt so natural to make music in that way, because it's very different than writing original music in a rock band setting. I guess it's just a whole different world, because you have to really think differently about how the music is, how it's shaped and how it appears, because it has to appear on paper first, and it has to be read by somebody else, so you have that I guess barrier to go through. Whereas if you're in a rock band, you can just transmit your ideas orally, you know, through sound, playing it, physically playing it. It's like, okay, here's my idea, do here, you know, and then you can show it to the band, and then, you know, you put the song together, a piece of cake, right? It's a very different experience, but very worthwhile, at least for me, because I always had this internal feeling that I always needed to create and make something, and it was music. Music was kind of the thing that helped at least form my identity at 14, right? So, you know, that's pretty young. So, you know, at that age, you're searching for purpose and who you are, and that's kind of how things came to be. And so I was always naturally very creative, especially as a child. You know, I'd play and make Legos and stuff and build these really, I don't know if they're cool, but, you know, I would build stuff, and I would just be generally creative, you know, as often as I could. And music just fit that. And so I always had this sort of internal fire of creation. And composition is, in a way, that's the most primal form of creation in music, I felt, because it's just you and the ideas, and you have to formulate them so that somebody else can interpret them. And, you know, that's really all it is. It's just you transmitting an idea through another medium, which is paper, to somebody to read it and perform it. And then, you know, it usually happens to be that the composer will conduct it or help conduct it, or a skilled conductor who you're collaborating with can help realize the music too in that way. So there's those situations. Very complex skill set to be in, but it was incredible. It was calling to me, and so that's really where I ended up. So from 2014 to now, I'm here basically with a fine arts degree in music composition. So I graduated in 2017, so I spent about 3 years here in a new place. I don't even know if I can say where I am. Well, I guess I could. I mean, it doesn't really matter too much, because you could probably find out where I am anyways. But you know, Vancouver, BC. So you know, I'm here on the mainland, and I came from Vancouver Island, Nanaimo. So yeah, there it is. So I left with a fine arts degree in music composition, and a little bit of experience in other places. You know, when we talk about the things I like later on, we'll probably get into that, because it does come from university. But that's pretty much my skills. During and after university, I did volunteer work as a vice president for a music society to help program and curate local music for composers. So I did that for a little while, and I stopped doing that around 2018 as I transitioned into a sales career. And from there, I was basically doing just inside sales. You could think of it as like boiler room sales, I guess. I don't want to sensationalize it too much or fabricate things, but you know, really the material I was listening to was Jordan Belfort sales scripts. You know, I did his straight lines training and just got into sales, and just really crushed it basically. You know, I was reading, I'm trying to think of the text now. Tom Hopkins was another good one. Zig Ziglar. And Brian Tracy, those were the sales figures that I learned from through their books and audio tapes, and I used their material in my sales profession. And you know, I worked with some good people that helped train me and coach me along so that I could become successful. And I did that for most of 2018, and then you know, for reasons outside of my control, the job ended, and I was forced to make choices, and I decided to start up the Newduereview blog in late 2018, where I was just doing affiliate marketing. Like it was, sorry, I was moving the mic. And that's where the Amazon stuff comes into play, like Amazon affiliate marketing. So I was really getting into affiliate marketing and just figuring out what that was, because I had no idea what all this was until like 2018, basically. So I'm a late bloomer when it comes to this digital entrepreneur landscape. Excuse me. And the funny thing is that the sales career I had used affiliate marketing to generate leads or generate traffic or revenue and all that. So it was all happening behind the scenes, and I didn't even realize it until near the end, where I started to, you know, learn about all these things that are opportunities. And so I took it upon myself to just start up a blog and write about marketing and write about my learning experience, basically. And so I've been doing that pretty much ever since. You know, I found jobs here and there to help support myself and pay the bills. You gotta do what you gotta do. But that's really where I'm at right now. You know, I'm my own boss in a way, doing all these things. I don't have to report to anybody on this content. I'll say whatever I want. And that's just how it is. So that's pretty much the story, I guess. You know, maybe I'll retell the story down the line as we talk more. You know, because there's so much more to it. I mean, that's like the short version of it. I'm just looking at the time. Okay, it's only been 32 minutes. We've got an hour, and I'm gonna go for an hour and 15 minutes just because of the audio size. I can only upload a certain audio, so. Okay, so off track again, back on track. Where are we going? So the story, that's pretty much the story. At least that gives you an idea of what I've done. So really, I guess we could sum that up as, you know, music, playing in bands, being a composer to some degree, sales, working in a call center mostly, so talking a lot like I'm doing right now. Working in a non-for-profit music society to help local musicians, and then, you know, here we are now as content creation, blogging, affiliate marketing, all that stuff, just basically making content for a ton of platforms, all the ones I've mentioned above, like Twitter, Insta, TikTok, YouTube, you know, my own blog and stuff. So that is it. Like that takes us to like literally this exact moment. What time is it? Maybe I can look on my phone. I'm going to stand up. You can't see me move, but in the camera you can. 7:49 p.m. Wednesday, January 29th. This is a day when one of my other blogs domains expired, that I'm just letting expire because I can't really use it. I don't know how to use the brand. I should be able to. I'll try and figure out how to monetize or do things with that in the future. But I have that on my camera, or sorry, on my calendar. Why did I say camera? So the 29th. So yeah, that's today, January 29th. So that's where we are. So okay, that's kind of like me. You could, I guess, infer the skills based on what I've done. Mostly, it's just a lot of. Well, how would you boil it all down? You know, like performance, I guess. You know, performing, execution of tasks, basically. But you know, the composition and the blogging, it's far more creative. You know, you have to really be clever and think of interesting ways to make your content interesting. So maybe let's talk about that, because I think I can really go on a tear when it comes to what content is, and I guess the aesthetic. So when using the word aesthetic, I'll just explain that. It's really, I think of it just as beauty. Is something good or bad? So when I think of aesthetic, when it comes to any sort of art form, the physical art, dance, movie, film, aesthetic to me is like, okay, well, is this good? Is the look of it good? Does it feel good to me? Because I don't want to use it as something as like being a critic. Like, is this movie good or bad? 5 stars and all that. 'Cause I see it as a more kind of grander concept. At least when I try to use it, that could be incorrect, but I don't care. Somebody, if I'm totally wrong, then that's fine. I'll totally accept it and make another content piece about it. So if I am wrong, that's probably a good thing, because then I've got an easy piece of content. I can just come on here and apologize and re-explain all that, because I do know how it all works, but it's just that's how I want to use it. I like to reuse words and try to not change their meaning, but just have it make a little bit more sense for people who don't say like aesthetic a lot, because it's an artistic term. Anyways, so when it comes to content, I can talk about the aesthetic of it. So for me, I was looking at the mic to see if it was on, because that would suck if I was talking into this thing and it wasn't recording. Okay, good, it's recording. Woo! Aesthetic. All right, so what I'm doing pretty much is just super lo-fi kind of raw content. Like I'm capturing me in the moment as much as I can explain that. If you're watching this video, it's just me on a couch, and if you're listening to this audio, it's just me talking. But I'm not making any cuts or edits. I'm doing this specifically on purpose, because I could slap this into an editing program, put in some frills and bills, and then I could edit the video. But I don't want to. I want to capture all of this stuff, and so that's going to be sort of, I guess, my aesthetic. You could say is rawness, gnarly, because I like that. I like gnarly, raw things. Because I remember when I was listening to music when I was younger, I wasn't afraid to listen to the super low quality demo tapes of bands that I was trying to get into. Like I remember I found, I was with the Deftones, there was these like demo tapes they had before their first album, Adrenaline, and they didn't sound very good. They were very, I don't want to say poorly recorded, but the equipment definitely wasn't up to par for like a major label recording, basically. So they're just like demo tapes, and I loved them. I liked those songs, and I still listen to some of those songs. And it never bothered me. Quality is something that holds a lot of creators back, I think. A lot of people talk about just doing it and just recording it, and so that's kind of where I exist. Is I'm going to exist in a sort of raw, gnarly way, like an unpolished demo before the big label debut, right? That's where I'm going to exist, and that's where I want to exist, because I see very little value in having something completely polished and perfect. Although this is also a contradiction, because some of the albums and music that I love a lot and appreciate are that they're polished and perfect, but I still see them as being polished in a artistic way that is just put together in the right way. I guess you could say that. So I don't want to. I mean, I'm okay if I contradict myself. I guess I'm not opposed to that. But I guess that's how it's gonna be. I'm gonna exist in this type of aesthetic format, I guess you could say, because it's also a form. I'm just doing a long form of me talking spoken word. So that's just how it is. So yeah, that's funny because we're gonna talk about music at some point down the road, and I'll mention albums and stuff. And technically, those albums they are sonically, I guess, perfect, but they're when you do listen to some of those albums, they are there's elements of rawness that still can resonate. I mean, if we throw out a few drop names, like say, I don't know, I'm trying to think off the top of my head because I wasn't really expected to talk about albums or music, but well, there's like the late '80s into the early '90s. That was an interesting period of time. You had Motley Crue, Dr. Feelgood in '89, where they worked with Bob Rock, and that album to me sounded just so good. When I first heard it, I was like, I think in the 2000s, because I was 14, right? So I would have been only a teenager when I heard that older stuff from the '80s. But it was just like, to me, it was like, wow, this sounds like incredibly good. And then Metallica's Black Album a few years later with Bob Rock, and like the Black Album is just it's like a sonic masterpiece when it comes to just like recording procedure, how to record a good distortion, how to do just major production basically, right? So there's that element of like perfection too, but I guess to me that's a different. I'm seeing that as a whole kind of different thing, because that's like pure artistry, like because Bob Rock is a producer and Metallica is a band, like they know how to put together an album, and they're going to capture the right things, and really what they're capturing is that raw gnarliness, and just presenting it in a better way. Whereas I guess you could do the same thing with my content, where maybe I could be presented in a better way. But I don't know. It's probably not appropriate to compare myself to that, but I guess that's where I talked myself into a corner for this, because that's going to happen too. I know that I'm going to be on this thing, and I'll be talking about stuff and be like, oh wow, where do I go from here? Shoot. And anyways, okay, so yeah, there it is, like aesthetic. But yeah, I like stuff that is raw and unfiltered, coming from the heart of the content creator. When music is done that way, like from the previous century and all that, it sounds and feels really good. Stuff that's like very pure. But then again, you have to. It also makes me think too about the past, like the bands and stuff that I listened to. Was there not an element of filtration or perfection that they had to go through to get to that? And my perception of it now is I'm thinking that, oh, that's like really raw, natural stuff, and maybe it wasn't when I go back and listen to it, because like I was saying with the Dr. Feelgood and the Metallica, that's like just really good production, so they're refining all of these songs to the point. But when I'm looking back at it, it's like, well, like the Alice in Chains record, Facelift, to me that sounds kind of like really raw and gnarly, but it had a lot of artistry in the production element of it too, right? So there's that could be an interesting thing that we'll talk about in the future, is maybe the perception of it, right? Because you could say also too, is like, oh, that those Led Zeppelin albums, they're so raw and raunchy and rocky, but I guess at that time, like the late '60s, like '69, '70, and all that, like the going into that early '70s, they were trying really hard to create and produce like a high fidelity recording. So they're not trying to do like something raw and gross. They're trying really hard to make sure that everything's captured in the best way possible, with the best equipment they could, I guess. Because the '70s, that's a long time ago, right? So that's kind of cool. The perception over time. Looking back to these old albums and thinking, yeah, oh yeah, it was this or that, but try to put yourself back into the consumer shoes, the listeners, the fans, right? The people who would have been listening to it. What's their perception of it from that point, and the musicians. That's interesting. So we'll talk about that. So that's something that has just been magically uncovered on the podcast and on film and stuff. It was funny. I was like rubbing my eyes because I had there's like a hair in my eyes, but you can't see that in this podcast. Okay, so where are we at? 44 minutes. We'll go for another 40 minutes or so. Well, I mentioned a few bands like Motley Crue, Metallica. Oh, excuse me. Metallica, Alice in Chains. Those are bands I like. I like that stuff. I'm in my mid-30s, so that can give you a clue already as to probably what bands I've listened to when it comes to rock and metal. Because that's really my scope is. I like rock and metal, but my education turned me on to so much other fantastic stuff. So, we'll get into what I like when it comes to music and other topics that we may eventually get into and talk about in the future. But when it comes to music, I like everything, and that's a funny way of saying, or at least people make fun of that because it's like, oh, you like everything, so you like. It basically means something specific, but I mean, when I say that, it means like I really do like all genres of music. The education I had allowed me to at least get into jazz and classical as two primary sources, or two primary genres. But then that branches you out basically, because once you understand those two genres, you start to really understand all the other genres a lot easier. So jazz leads into funk a little bit and like fusion, where it's like jazz players playing different. They're mixing genres for the very first time, and so. You ended up with the first series of hybrid genres from, the mid 20th century. So that's pretty cool, right? So as a bass player, funk is very bass oriented. So I dig that. You get into world music too, and what I mean by that is music really outside of North America. Canada in the United States pretty much make up North America as far as the music canon. I don't really want to use that word, but I guess that's a good way of describing the general terminology of what music is in North America. But or at least in the context of world music, because it's basically music outside of North America. Or the European tradition, I guess you could say. The European classical is its own thing. Like France, Germany, Russia. All those were the countries of origin for the major composers of previous centuries, the 1800s and all that. So but that kind of gets all mixed into this North America terminology, right? But it's far more complex than that. So when you say world music, it does. I feel like it does need a little bit of an explanation, because it's like, well, what does that mean, right? Like world music, like Sepultura. If you take as a metal band, they're from Brazil, but they're metal. They play variations of like thrash, speed metal, all kinds of metal. But they incorporated some of their ancestry into their music with the Roots album. I forget the exact date. That's not on the top of my head. I'm sorry about that. But you could, if you know Sepultura, you know Roots. If you know metal, you probably know what I'm talking about. And so they're a band that kind of started out as a sort of thrash speed metal band, and then they sort of evolved. But they're not North American. They're South American. Like they're from Brazil. So where do they fit in, right? Are they North American metal? Well, not technically. They're not North American born, right? So you end up with these problems when it comes to terminology with all this, right? So world music, yeah, it gets. I feel it's complicated. So. Music outside of North America, basically, because then you can incorporate music from China or other parts of the world, Africa too, so, but it becomes super vague, because African music doesn't sound like music from East Asia, or maybe not China specifically, or say Japan. All those East Asian countries, they have their own sound. So how do you, if I said world music, and then you went and listened to music from Africa, and then you went and listened to music from China, you're going to be like, well, what? Like, it doesn't really sound anything like there's very few similarities. So it becomes problematic. But the process of education opens that up for you, and it shows you the possibilities of how these genres just become far too complex to lump any one thing into. But that's how you're sort of exposed to it all. You know, you sort of get exposed to a wide genre, and then you're taught through teachers and books, and to really unpack very specific things, right? So, you know, world music. Okay, good. Let's focus in on Africa and talk about that as a whole thing, and then you can go into certain countries, because each country in Africa has their own traditions too, right? So you can zoom in and out in various ways. So it's very cool, and there's so much to learn. But it's complex to use as like a blanket statements, right? But so you get in you get into that. That puts you in sort of an ethnomusicology, anthropologic look at music when you go into the world music concept. But that's where you end up. So yeah, like jazz, classical, world music, all that kind of mixes together, and you get these like really crazy genres, basically. Jazz, I like the funk. What I guess electronic music too is another thing, because that's another genre of music that is kind of its own thing, because it's not you're not dealing with the typical instruments in the classical tradition, like the woodwinds, the strings, or even sort of the popular now tradition, like electronic guitars and acoustic drums and all that. So electronic music kind of has its own thing, and so I guess for me, you know, when you deal with the primary genres, you've got the pop music, which you can lump rock into, or all that pop rock. You know, you've got popular music, jazz, classical, world, and electronic are kind of, I see them as like primary colors of genres, and I love all of it. Like, so yeah, when I say I like all music, like I do. Like I like everything, because there's always going to be bad music in any genre anyway, but you can tell right away that music was made without any passion or any love for it. And you can tell the music that is good has a lot of love, because the people making the music, they love it. You can really tell. Like it's very noticeable when you listen to a band that's making the songs because they're trying to fit in for money. That happened a lot in the 80s. The 80s are a very interesting point in time, especially for metal, where you had a lot of derivatives pop up almost, you know, like almost overnight, where it's like, all right, metal's popular, let's hop on the metal train, right? So there's a lot of bands that just copied for the sake of getting into the music scene. That even gets complex when you say it like that too, because you know for people in those bands, they were legitimately trying to do something new and creative too. So they may not have been like the reasons for doing it may have been pure and natural, but when you look at the context of history, you see all these just groups come out of nowhere playing the same type of metal because it's popular. So there's that. You know, there's so many weird complexities in music. So yeah, where are we right now? So we're talking about metal, but then I was talking about what I like as terms of music. So yeah, I mean, like all of it. Yeah, let's just all of it. I like classical music. Like what my favorite genre of classical, well, even classical is a weird genre to say, because, well, you know, if I say my favorite genre, which is like impressionistic music from the like late 1800s, early 1900s in France, that's kind of super specific. You know, Claude Debussy, hope I pronounced that right. He's one of my favorite French composers. That's just a specific composer that I, you know, learned through studying history, and I really liked I like his compositions. His piano pieces are beautiful. They're extremely well known. Clair de Lune, and everyone knows that piano clip when you hear it. But yeah, he's a French composer, and the music is technically impressionistic music from the late 1800s to the early 1900s from France, but it gets lumped into classical as a genre, right? So yeah, you know, once you start picking apart genre tags and all that, it gets so complex. So I don't know. I don't know what we're talking about, because I'm supposed to be saying what I like as music, but now we're trying to dissect genres and sort of basically explaining how complex that is. But I don't know. I guess that's just how we're gonna end up talking about things, because my personality, I guess, is a fairly I guess not super critical, but I like to dissect things and pick apart things to understand more about them, you know, for curiosity's sake. Like, I'm a very curious person, and when it comes to music, that's sort of a benefit, because you really do want to go in and examine as much as you possibly can to learn. You know, you don't want to be stuck writing a song and realize, oh, that was already written, because that happens so much. I've done it. So many bands have been, you know, they'll do a riff and be like, gosh, you know, dang, that was already done by, you know, whatever band, like Aerosmith or something, right? Or like a Beatles song, or like an old Van Halen deep cut or something like that. You know, to know the scope of music, the being curious really was a benefit for me, because, you know, it's like, oh, cool, all right, so who's this musician, you know, because now I'm talking about like current 20th century stuff. It's like, wait, oh, who did they play with and all that stuff, right? You can look at all that stuff now, find the producers, find the record label, all that means something, which adds to your understanding of what that music is too. So where are we now? Whoa, okay, so we're talking about like how to be curious and experience music. But I guess that's really telling you what I like anyways, right? Because we're talking about bands, you know, I said Sepultura, I like that band a lot as a metal band. They sound really good. They make really heavy songs. I like the distortions that they were using. All that stuff, right? You know, bass tones, and I like that they added their Brazilian roots into the album roots, right? You know, that's an incredible metal album. And when you look at the producers and the labels who are involved, all that connects to this sort of deep heritage of North American metal, from Roadrunner Records, basically. You kind of get into that. Yeah, so I guess I am telling you what I like by talking about these things, because you know, I look at music, at least right now, from a very historic perspective. Like, you know, take any band. Let's think of let's talk about Nickelback. So, you know, you probably know who Nickelback is, right? So, when I think of Nickelback, you know, I think about a ton of things. You know, one of the things I would think about is, well, what label are they on? You know, what's their history of that? So, you know, we won't talk too much else about them. I'm just, because I want to use them as an example to tell you how I would sort of decode who they are, right? You know, because I don't really think about songs or what the song feels like to me. Like, when I think about bands, I sort of think about, like, where are they in history right now, right? So, you know, Nickelback's like, okay, cool, they're a current band. They've got X amount of albums. They started, when did they start? Like the late 90s, I guess, or the early 2000s. Man, this is going to be brutal, because now I got to look up. Well, let's take my phone and pull up a history file of them, because that'll be funny to capture on film, right? And through audio. Let's look up Nickelback and see when they started as a band. Oh, 95. So, Hannah, Alberta, Canada. So they've been a band since 1995. So think about that, right? So 25 years. Wow. They've been a band for 25 years. And so when I think of bands, like, I usually know at least the time period of, you know, when they were a band, because that gives you that sort of reveals things about the band too. Like, were they, like, what century, like, what's the time period of the band? You know, if they're a 90s band, they're going to sound a certain way. So, I know, okay, Nickelback, yeah, cool, late 90s, so they've been surviving as a band for a long time. They've evolved and changed over the years. What record label are they on? Last time I knew that they were on Roadrunner Records. Does it even say? Let me see if I can find it. Because Roadrunner Records is a metal label, and Nickelback isn't exactly a metal band. But they can be heavy sometimes. They've got very heavy songs. Oh, I guess they're with BMG. So yeah, they've changed labels too over the years. Because I remember The State, that was on Roadrunner Records. No, it was released independently, and then they got signed. Yeah, so anyways, you end up on this rabbit hole of like, oh, okay, well, what else can you find about the band to tell you about them? Because the music, when you listen to music, for me, that's the easy part, right? You put on a song, I can tell by listening to it, a lot about it, but it's the other details, like the historic, like the data points, right? Like when the timeline of their albums, if they're current or not, all that gives you more information. So, if someone tells me like, oh, have you heard of this, and I haven't heard of them, I usually want to know like what time period. Like, are they brand new? Are they current? How many albums have they done? Do you know the record label and stuff? So I try to find out that if I can. It puts people in an awkward position if they're with me, because they're like, well, I don't know, I know the band, and I don't know, I feel like kind of like a jerk sometimes, I guess, when it comes to music, because I want to know so much. I demand a lot of information from bands, and bands that are well established have that available, right? You can go to their Wikipedia file, or you can look them up online and find out what you want. And so that's what drives my curiosity, is I guess the historic part of music, because all that paints an interesting picture, of how many albums a band does and their timeline for it. Because if you think, let's use Van Halen, I guess, and maybe Black Sabbath, or even Led Zeppelin. So, those bands, they did like their first 5 albums in a very short period of time. Like, I think in probably a 5-year, almost a 6-year time span. And so bands don't really do that anymore. Like, they have longer stretches of album touring cycles where you make an album, go out and tour it, promote it, and make another album. You repeat that cycle. And so, a band like, say, Led Zeppelin or Black Sabbath or the Halen, they did that the turnover process was quickly. They would do the album, go tour it that summer, basically, and then just come back, and once they're back from tour, they just make the next album comes out, which is like the next year. So it's very quick. You would see albums made just year after year. But that doesn't really happen anymore. That happens in longer periods. So let's look at Nickelback's time frame of albums, because that can actually tell you quite a bit about how they operate, right? So their first album, Curb, was 96. It's like an independent one, and then The State was 98. Silver Side Up was 2001. Long Road, 2003. All the Right Reasons, 2005. Dark Horse, 2008. Here and Now, 2011. No Fixed Address, 2014. Feed the Machine, 2017. So you've got a very clear 2 to 3 year time frame in between albums, which is pretty consistent right from the get-go, right? 96 to 98, 2 years. 3 years between State and Silver Side Up. So that's pretty cool, right? So that tells you that this band is consistently producing albums. And if I look at the last date of the Feed the Machine 2017, so I could infer that there's going to be a new Nickelback album coming very soon. And it looks like they're on a 3-year cycle. starting on 2005, right? 5 to '08 is 3 years, 8 to 11 is 3 years, 11 to 14 3 years, yeah. So they're on like a 3-year cycle where they do an album. They probably go out and tour it for a while, and then they probably come back and write a new thing and record it. So they're on like a longer scope. Or scope, is that even the right word? I don't know. I'll start using weird words the longer we do this. But let's look at Van Halen. Their time frame of recording, and see how that compares. Because you're going to be surprised. I already know this, but I don't know it off by heart. But it'll kind of surprise you how quick it was compared to Nickelback. So Van Halen 1, it's just Van Halen, 78. Van Halen 2, 79. Women and Children First, 80. Fair Warning, 81. Diver Down, 82. And then 1984 was 1984. And then 5150 was 86. OU 812, 88. For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, 91. Balance, 95. Van Halen 3, 98. A Different Kind of Truth is 2012. So they haven't done too much since 2012 as far as original album release. But you've got right up until Diver Down, the first 5 albums done basically year after year, right? So that doesn't really happen anymore. You don't really see that as commonly as you did with Van Halen. But let's look at Black Sabbath. So I'm just doing this on my phone. You can't see it on the camera, which is good because I don't know how that works for copyright or whatever. But this is all on Wikipedia. You could just go to Wikipedia, find it. So let's look at Black Sabbath's discography, and you're going to see a very similar pattern where it's just year after year, except this is more like a Zeppelin kind of thing. So Sabbath 70, Paranoid 70, Master of Reality 71, Volume 4 72, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, that's one of my favorites actually, 73. Sabotage 75, Technical Ecstasy 76, Never Say Die 78, Heaven and Hell 80, Mob Rules 81, Born Again 83, Seventh Star 86, Eternal Idol 87, and then I guess those series of albums kind of just it becomes not Black Sabbath to me anymore. Black Sabbath was really with Ozzy, as far as I'm concerned. I don't want to get too elitist on the whole Sabbath thing, but. Yeah, but anyways, you've got the pattern, right? You already heard the pattern. So it's basically every year, right up until Sabotage. So basically, Sabbath's first 5 albums were done very quickly. Actually, they did 5 albums in 3 years. Like that's a lot of recording, right? And then from Sabotage, 75, 76, 78. So you kind of see how that works. So let's look at Led Zeppelin, because you're going to see a similar pattern. Just like Sabbath, there's Zeppelin Sabbath. Oh my god, I gotta get all this verbiage clear. So so let's look at the Zeppelin, and so Zeppelin debut 69, Zeppelin 2 69, Zeppelin 3 70, and then the Untitled, which is Zeppelin 4 71, House of the Holy 73, Physical Graffiti 75, Presence 76, In Through the Outdoor. That's a great album, by the way. 79, Coda 82. So look at that pattern, right? So Black Sabbath, Van Halen, and Led Zeppelin all have sort of a similar cycle of making albums every year, whereas Nickelback has 2 to 3 years. And using Nickelback as more of a grand, let's say, measurement. Most bands operate like that. Every few years you're going to do an album. Some bands will go even longer and deviate away from that. So that happens too, right? There's really no set normality. There's no rules to say what to do, but I'm more pointing out sort of the things that you can find out by looking into the band's history, like the way I'm doing right now. Really, what we did in real time is, who's the band? Like what's their history? What can that tell you? And so that tells you. So look at the history of the Zeppelin. So they do the album. It's recorded. They go out and tour it. come back, do an album, tour, come back. You know, they just do that every year. And Sabbath and Halen did all that, so that's pretty interesting. So I gotta untangle. There you go. That was weird. You could probably hear that in the recording. But things are very different now in the 21st century. You know, you can find bands that just have different patterns of how they put out their albums, and I find all that very interesting. So when it comes to, you know, knowing what a band is, that's what I focus on. I guess I don't know. Maybe that's too nerdy, maybe, or idiosyncratic, or something. But I don't know. I like that because I like the facts. So there it is. That's what I like. I kind of like the geekiness of it, because when you I guess the reason I would like it is because as a practitioner, you need to know. Knowing that really helps you generate and create your own music. Putting yourself in the shoes of the artist that you're taking influence from really helps. So if I was making metal music now, that would really be helpful for me to know that, you know, you're operating your music on a cycle of release it, tour it, promote it, go back and make more music, basically. So, you know, you're preparing yourself for the long haul, and it gives you an idea of, like, well, okay, how are they making these new songs? Like, do they just like magically come out when they're on tour? Like, when are they writing this stuff? Like, how does it all work, right? So you have to. It makes you think, how do they do it? And by that, you're then engaging in a process of you know, research, and then you really kind of find out, like, you know, I did with Van Halen, is that a lot of their songs were just already written before they got into the limelight and into the popularity. Like they really were able to record all those albums in such succession because a lot of the material was already, I guess, not pre-written, but it is already sort of being made in the 70s, right? Because the Van Halen, those first two records came out in the late 70s. So a lot of the songs really were already sort of existed in other various forms. And so at that point, when you say, all right, let's make another album, cool, let's just get these other songs that we've been working on for a long time. And I can attest to that too, as being in a band. You know, you have songs that you work on for a long period of time that you keep working on. You have in your backlog of songs, and then you can finally finish a song and go and record it, basically, and release that to the world. But the world doesn't know. They see it as a brand new song, but they don't realize that song's been being written for like 5 years or a few years. So, you know, even more extreme cases where some songs can sit in a musician's head or in some other format for like a decade, and then finally it gets finalized and recorded, and boom, it's a new song. But, you know, the people don't have the ability to know that, you know, right off the get-go, right? So someone makes a song in 2020, well, maybe they've been working on it for like 5 years, you know. So really, that song actually has sort of qualities of that period when it was starting to be written. So you get to figure out that sort of stuff, and it's all very interesting. It's all very exciting. I'm just going to flip the mic and untwist myself. Where are we at? So we're at 1 hour and 13 minutes already, so we're pretty much done. I'm going to sign this thing off. Oh my god, I'm all tangled up. Come on. Here we go. I like tangled up the headphone, basically. You could probably see it on camera a little bit better. But yeah, there it is. We talked about a lot of the things I like, some of the weird things that I like to think about when I think about bands. Talked about my skills in history. What else can we talk about? You know, I'm going to try to do this as often as I can, and just freeform this and just talk and see what comes out. And I guess we'll leave it at that. Okay, so I don't know how to Newduereview signing off. We'll see you next time. There we go.